this opens up all kinds of opportunities for you now. This is what we've talked about before, that you can get back to being who you want to be. You don't have to be somebody for that spouse anymore. You can be who you are.
Thank you so much for joining us on Second Act TV. I am so happy to welcome back our guest today. TV network comedy writer, author, and the creator of DivorcedOver50.com, Barry Gold. Barry, thank you so much for joining me again.
Oh, Silka, thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you in any way, shape, or form. So great.
Well, let's set the stage here a little bit. Barry was actually my very first guest on Second Act, my very first Skype interview.
My claim to fame, yes.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but I always do refer to him as my first.
And I always refer to you as my best. So.
I look at that interview and say, oh my God, my audio was off. It's all good though. You got to start somewhere. And the information in it is very good. As I said in my introduction, Barry is the creator of a website, a community called DivorcedOver50.com. And that's how we met. Back 5-6 years ago when we started this, I was very heavily focused on the whole gray divorce aspect. And so were you, a reflection of what we were going through and dealing with in our life as well. The reason you're here today, you just released your debut novel, Going Up. I want to say Bouncing Up, Going Up. And it's about, romantic comedy about life after divorce. So let's talk a little bit about how you got to that point, because you also wrote a book, real stories about gray divorce.
It's gray divorce stories, exactly. And that was nonfiction because I conducted a series of interviews using the website. I solicited people who'd be willing to talk to me and let me transcribe the conversation about what they'd gone through in their marriages, their divorces, and then their recoveries. But I learned a lot. I mean, it was pretty eye-opening. And actually some of the nonfiction I used then when I turned to writing fiction, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Well, tell me why you thought this was important that you developed all these platforms and books that you have.
Well, the thing is, as we know, gray divorce is a phenomenon. The research has shown it's the only demographic, the over 50 demographic or the baby boomer demographic. That's the only place where divorce is going up. It just seemed like a lot of people were in this situation. And I think we share a philosophy that it's not ideal. You don't plan for this. You don't want this to happen. But that if it does, it opens up all kinds of new opportunities for you, and that you can end up much better off. Again, not ideal, but the bottom line at the end is things could be better, and very likely will be.
Yes, that's exactly right. And there's so many people, again, watching that are going through this that I'd like to, what can we share that either gives some direction? Oh, I don't want to go through this, or,
It's very hard. Yeah. And I actually developed, I'm going to claim, I may have mentioned this when we first talked, but I'm going to claim the term die curious or divorce curious as that I created that. But the point is that people are in a situation and you're saying, this isn't good, but at least I know what it is. And if I do make this move and do get divorced, then I'm starting all over. That's scary. I don't want to go through that. And nobody knows, you can't know what the right decision is, but that I think we've both experienced that if it does happen and you do make that move, or your spouse makes that move for you, there is a brighter future out there and you can get to it.
Yes, you can get to it. Which is what I love about, the book. And I see this progression in what you've created. DivorcedOver50.com was a bit more serious. I think being a comedy writer, you always bring some levity to your. Barry's a fantastic writer. It's really great. Then the interviews that you shared and gave, and now It's really
Oh,
romantic comedy.
that's fun. You know what? I had not seen that progression, but thank you. I appreciate that. And I think you're right. That was for me with the writing interest and background, that the next step was then to take what I had learned in reality and turn it into a piece of fiction, drawing from plenty of reality, but yes, so to try to make a fictional version of this, so which is what I've done. So thank you.
Well, and there's nothing like that out there. I mean, here's what struck me, and I've read like
Mhm.
half of the book, and it was partially because of time, and partially because I really didn't want to know the end yet, because I didn't want to
Okay.
ruin anything in this interview. But I'm very entrenched. I love the characters. There's certain ones I identify with, and I think
Right.
anybody that has gone through this or is going through it will identify with one of the characters, and there's hope in that.
Yeah.
I think you capture the struggles really accurately.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And beyond just the getting your romantic life back on track, it's I wanted this book to appeal to people who are very happily married, which would be great. Because there are other things that we as baby boomers are going through, that everybody that are universal for this generation, dealing with elderly parents. That's a big part of my life right now. I'm very fortunate that my parents are 90 and 91. They live like 6 blocks away. There's career stuff. There's starting, perhaps you have to start a new career, or maybe you're trying desperately to hold on to the one that you have as the world is changing and there's less and less demand for you. The launching kids is another thing that hopefully, depending on where you are in that baby boom range, your kids may still need to get out there and get out of the house, get out of school and get out of the house. So my characters are dealing with the divorce stuff, but also the general um, baby boomer issues that come up at this point.
Right. Well, and that's what makes it real. On
Thank
this
you.
channel, and I think in everything, at least of what I've read, what you've done, there is. I mean,
Mhm.
romance. The romantic part of it is big. I want to get
Right.
a little personal with you.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm. Everybody knows I've dated online. That was also a
Right.
big part of my life, and I met Paul. We've been
Mhm.
together now over 10 years, and our relationship looks different than what a lot of people are might aspire to, such as marriage. We don't want to get
Mhm.
married again, and I know you are in a very happy relationship,
Right. Yes, I
and
am.
talk about
Um,
that because that gives hope as
well,
well.
yeah, it's that we're heading for seventh year together, my girlfriend and I, and we're not planning to get married either. It's kind of similar to your situation. We just all the time go, we can't believe how good this is. There's nothing to fight about. There's no disagreements. We have our own lives separate. We have our own life. We have our life together. It's like stunningly so much better. And I think that's part of, and this is why I say that you do have this chance to make things better, because we're established. We're not, we've chose each other at this point knowing who we are. When you get married in your 20s, you're sort of projecting ahead to what who you think that person will be, or what you hope that person will be.
And if you met on Facebook or reconnected.
No, actually, no. We actually knew each other in high school, and which I think happens a lot. I've heard other stories like this, that people get reconnected. It's you have a shared background. We knew people in common. It was actually some of her close friends who sort of helped make this happen, and so that again was just again part of what made it easy for us.
People that are watching, they come to this channel really for advice and tips.
Hmm.
When it comes to bouncing back, and I know it's everybody's at a different point, and especially those that were perhaps just left, if that's
Yeah,
that's a circumstance, it's a lot harder, and listening to
it
us
is.
talk very jovially. So I want to recognize that this is a
Absolutely.
very, very difficult time in everybody's life. It's just that you can get through it, which is what we're trying to say. So back to my question.
Okay.
What are some bounce back tips that you've learned over the years that you can pass on?
I think the main thing is to do it at your own pace and to make decisions for yourself and not be pressured by friends, family, whatever. In the case of, seeking romance again, that is, don't feel pressured by people who think you should, or it's time. It's that nobody can tell you when it's time to get back out there or whatever. And it may never be time to. You may say, you know what, I am done with this, and I don't want to. That's not an interest of mine anymore. I think that it's probably, particularly at the very beginning, it's hard to see a future out there. It's hard to see that things can get better, but I think we're examples that they can. If you just keep looking ahead, and take advantage instead of wallowing in, when you probably need to wallow a little while. But then I think when you can begin, this opens up all kinds of opportunities for you now. This is what we've talked about before, that you can get back to being who you want to be. You don't have to be somebody for that spouse anymore. You can be who you are, and it can open up opportunities to try new things and do things that maybe you wouldn't have done in your marriage. I would just say to keep looking to the future, that there is a brighter future, and that people have done it. It seems terrible at the start, but that you can get through it, and that you can really find a level. Again, I will say, certainly in my case, and I feel so fortunate, but it's just so much better than I ever thought it could be.
I agree. I agree, and it can be so much better. And I went to my new life with a completely open mind, open attitude. And again, I recognize that that was easier for me than some other people, but it also works. You set the stage to receive happiness and to create what you want. So we're starting to come to the end of our segment, Barry, and we can talk about this forever. I do have one question for you.
Sure.
So there's one scene in the book, I don't think I'm giving anything away, but where the sons of the man, they put him on Match without telling him.
Right.
And I know that the characters are all, there's a little bit of you in all 6 characters. Did that happen to you, or was it somebody else?
No, that's very funny. No, I totally invented that part. The book is set in 2015, so some things may have changed. So I'm not positive you could still, I'm not even sure you could have done that at the time. I shouldn't be maybe admitting that. But that was, I did invent that. That was fully fictional. But
I thought that was so funny, just had me cracking up. Yeah. And the other, there's one other scene I'll disclose, and again, I don't think I'm giving anything away. There is a scene where they meet for a wedding, and you have to see old friends there's resentment there because they're still.
Yeah, that's and again, everything in this book is an exaggeration or fictionalized, even if I took from real people or parts of myself or whatever. But yes, that is definitely, and we didn't talk about that. That is another part of this, is when you're a couple and you have couple friends, and then you're no longer a couple, there are going to be changes to those relationships, and somebody is probably going to feel like they've lost. I've written that there's some stuff on the divorcedover50.com website about that and dealing with friends. I wrote a piece for Huffington Post about tips for the friends of a couple that get divorced. Just little things that you may not even think of them, but it could be seen as a real slight by one of the two people, depending on how things go. So that's real, and that's the kind of thing too that's part of this process.
Yeah, well, I love the reaction. He was the character. It was Ted, right? Ted or Howie? Which one was it?
It was Howie. Was at that wedding.
Yeah, and Howie, he was dreading it, and then his reaction was just priceless. And I'm not going to say what it was. I want to blow it.
Spoiler. Yeah, that was one of the moments I did like that moment, and that didn't happen either. But in reality, it was a fantasy. But
we haven't even touched sex.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There's some of that in the book too. I should just add, not too explicit, but there's some, and that's it's a big part of life. And I think this book fully acknowledges that people of our age, that's still important, and it can be really great. So, and that's the message that I want to send too. I mean, it's fiction, but it is what I see as the truth, that you can find this better future.
Right. Well, I think the book addresses, it's one of your opening lines, either in your marketing materials or what, but has your life gone exactly as you expected? And I think the answer to that for all of us is no. So, if not, then what?
Right. And gray divorce is maybe one of the bigger things that nobody ever planned on. But so, yeah, but you're right. Nobody's life goes the way they expect it. It's how you react to that and still finding the better way to go and the way to make things better.
Barry, thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
I'm going to, of
so
course,
good.
link to the book. I encourage you to
Okay.
get it. It's on,
Thank
Amazon,
you.
like where you
Thanks.
get everything else these days.
Right.
I'll
Thank you.
link to, I'll link to divorcedover50.com. I know it's not as
Oh,
active anymore, but you have some great resources on there, especially for somebody just now going through this.
right. Thank you. That would be great. And for people who, there's plenty of material on that site. If you're just getting into this, I would encourage you to take a look. There's plenty of information and encouragement on the site too.
Barry, thank you, and I hope to see you again soon on Second
Yeah,
Act
that would be
TV.
great, Silke. Thank you so much for this chance. Always great to talk to you.
Bye.
All right.
If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too. We'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.